Good afternoon. For more than a year, the federal government has escalated their attempts to interfere with how states administer elections. The president's speech on Thursday made it unmistakably clear. He is once again laying the groundwork to dispute the results of the election if he doesn't like the outcome. As Oregon's Secretary of State and chief election official, my job is to protect Oregon's election results, to defend the rule of law, and to make sure that every eligible Oregonian can vote, that their vote is counted. So today I want to go over the attacks that we've seen so far, what we're doing to protect Oregon's elections, and what Oregon voters should expect this fall. Shortly after taking office, the Trump administration eliminated the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. It's known as CISA. A federal agency had the sole responsibility of supporting election security across the country. Support from that agency has not been brought back, despite the president's recent claims that election security is a priority. We all know that actions speak louder than words, and you don't strengthen election security by firing the people who are charged with defending it. Then came the president's first executive order, attempting to rewrite election law from the White House. Had it taken effect, thousands, if not millions, of eligible American citizens could have been prevented from voting simply because they lacked certain documents. Starting last summer, federal agencies began demanding that states hand over sensitive voter information beyond what is publicly available. And then they sued any states who refused. This year, the pressure has intensified. 2026 began with a ransom note from then Attorney General Pam Bondi to Minnesota, saying in part that the violence against the people of that state would stop if they simply handed over their private voter data. And the FBI raided the Fulton County, Georgia elections office, which is, of course, a regular target of the president's political attacks. And a Trump advisor said that they are considering sending ICE to polling places. That would be illegal. In March, the president issued another executive order attempting to use the Postal Service to control which Americans get mail ballots and which Americans do not. And finally, we come to this month. First, the U.S. Department of Justice informed states that they were preparing to arrest election workers this fall. Then, the president removed every member of the Bipartisan Election Assistance Commission, the independent agency responsible for certifying voting equipment, supporting election security, and helping states administer elections. On Thursday, the president used a primetime speech from the White House to repeat false conspiracy theories about the 2020 election that have already been investigated and litigated and disproven. Remember, his own administration said in 2020 that that election was the most secure in history, that election infrastructure was not infiltrated, and no votes were ever changed. On Friday, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen issued direct threats, saying that elections officials will pay the price if they do not cooperate with the administration's unlawful attempts to meddle in American elections. Taken one by one, these actions are concerning, to say the least. Taken together, they paint a clear picture. This is not about improving elections. It's about putting political pressure on the people responsible for administering them. This is about making it harder for American citizens to vote. It's about casting doubt on any election results that the president doesn't like. But the United States of America is still a country of laws, and the Constitution is clear. States run elections. And in Oregon, that is exactly what we are going to continue doing. We will defend our election workers. We will protect Oregonians' private voter data. We will safeguard our election infrastructure, and we will continue to use every legal tool available to us to protect Oregon's authority to administer free and fair elections. Over the past 18 months, our office has worked with Oregon's Attorney General to block both unlawful executive orders. We successfully defended Oregonians' private voter information in federal court. We're working closely with county clerks across Oregon to strengthen election security, to prepare for any credible threats we encounter, and to ensure that every county is ready for this November. Most importantly, we're making sure that voters know what to expect so that misinformation doesn't fill the gaps. So I want to go over what to expect, how things are going to work between now and the November election, and what Oregonians need to know about each one of those steps of the process. Believe it or not, we are less than 2 months away from the first ballots going out to voters. By September 19th, all military and overseas ballots will be printed and mailed to those registered Oregon voters. In-state Oregonians should start checking their mailboxes in early October for their voters' pamphlets so they can start researching their choices. Remember, participation in the voters' pamphlet is voluntary. So if you don't see a candidate or a measure included, that's because their information wasn't submitted. The deadline to register to vote or to make changes to your registration is October 13th. So every Oregon voter should check their registration to make sure that it is current before that date. Ballots will be mailed to Oregon voters starting on October 14th. We're working closely with the U.S. Postal Service to make sure that that process proceeds smoothly and without interference. Then, of course, it is time for Oregonians to make their voices heard. And as I've said before, my advice is really simple. Vote early. Complete your ballot as soon as you're ready. Make sure to sign the envelope and return it using one of Oregon's secure official drop boxes. That is the most reliable way to make sure that your ballot arrives safely and on time. If you need to use the mail, put your ballot in the mailbox by October 27th. That's 1 week before Election Day. If you're mailing closer to Election Day than that, ask your local post office to apply a manual postmark. October 27th is also the deadline for elections officials to conduct pre-election accuracy testing of their vote tally systems and to post the results. Ballots, of course, must be returned or postmarked by 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 3rd. Any ballot that is received within 1 week of Election Day and postmarked by Election Day will be counted. On election night, unofficial results will begin to appear at OregonVotes.gov after 8 p.m. Final results are certified only after every eligible ballot is counted and every security check and audit is completed. I know a lot of people are going to want to see final results faster than that, but our job is to get this right, and that takes a lot of careful, tireless work from our elections teams. Between Election Day and that certification, election officials verify signatures, they allow voters to cure signature issues, they conduct audits, they publicly test those voting machines again, they perform hand counts where required, and they complete every step that is required by Oregon law before certifying the election. That process is completed by December 10th. So here's what every Oregonian should remember. Our elections are secure. They are transparent. They are fair. They are administered by public servants who take their responsibilities seriously. The votes will be counted accurately. The results will reflect the will of Oregon voters. And in our democracy, everyone is expected to accept these lawful results, especially politicians and those with power. Thanks for being here. I'm happy to take your questions. Sir. The Legislative Fiscal Office did a really useful study on this question. They looked at 60.9 million ballots over about 20 years, and they found 38 cases of improper voting. Of course, I wish that number was zero, and we are always working to get closer to that. But that level does not indicate any evidence of an election outcome being changed. It does not justify any of the policies that the president is pursuing here. And Oregonians should be secure in the fact that our elections are safe, they're accurate, they're fair. And the best thing that Oregon voters can do is to hold politicians and government accountable by voting. We want to lead the country when it comes to turnout. we're better when more eligible people participate, and that's my message. Well, sure, they demanded the entire voter file, and when I said no, they sued me. And we went to federal court, and that case has been dismissed. We were the first state where that occurred, but that's now happened in 15 other states. So the president is 0 for 16 when he's demanding the voter file. There are lots of threats, but the Constitution's really clear. Article 1, Section 4, states run elections, the president does not. And if he were serious about addressing the issues of voting, he would be boosting the funding for CISA, not cutting it as he has. There are lots of things that we can do to make elections better, starting with supporting county clerks across Oregon and across the country. But this administration is not interested in that because I think they know that they are unpopular and they fear the accountability that an election represents. Hi. We make sure that we are following the law, and when we are obligated to refer cases to the Oregon Department of Justice, we do that. But we have a robust process to do that. It involves rigorous review of the circumstances. Our office does not have prosecutorial authority, so we follow the law and work with the Oregon Department of Justice on those questions. Yeah, the federal court in Eugene dismissed that case, and the Trump administration has appealed that. I listened to an argument before the Ninth Circuit Court. They have not ruled on that. But again, those same challenges have existed in 15 other states, all of which have been dismissed as well. I don't know the status of the appeals in those other cases. The executive order, similarly, both of them have been blocked. But there are a number of actions, and frankly, I'm not tracking every single one of them, but virtually every state has asserted their rights, and so far we've been successful. So I don't think the president is learning from those lessons very quickly, but we're prepared to go back to court again and again as many times as it takes. Yeah, we're talking with the Postal Service Administration regularly. We're asking them to review their processes and procedures to make sure that their directions are clear, because when someone puts a ballot in a mailbox, they have expectations. That's also why we're encouraging people, if they can get to a drop box, there's hundreds of them across Oregon, that is an even safer, more reliable way, because we don't have to worry about the post office. That will go directly to the elections office, and we'll make sure that they get counted. We'll pursue every legal authority that we have. We'll work with our Department of Justice. We'll make sure that our county elections officials have a clear understanding of their authorities and what they can do to respond. We're not taking any of that for granted, but I think it's important for Oregonians to remember they've got time. So when they get their ballots, if they're ready to go, having studied their voters' pamphlets, they can make their choices quickly and get their ballots back at any drop box at any time. So we have a real advantage in our system, and that's something we ought to use. You know, one of the great things about our system is that we have to be prepared for any kind of disruption, whether it is a policy disaster like the one we're talking about in the Save America Act, or a natural disaster. It wasn't so long ago that Oregon had to deal with wildfires around election time, and our county clerks figured out how to get ballots to people who no longer had houses. So we're anticipating every scenario and making sure that our clerks have the tools and the resources they need. Oregonians will get to vote, they will get to hold politicians accountable, and we want to make sure that they take advantage of that. I would just talk through the whole process. In Oregon, you have to prove your citizenship and your identity in order to register to vote. When a ballot comes to you, you have to sign the envelope when it comes back. Those signatures are verified by teams with forensic analysis. The paper ballot then is reviewed by a multi-partisan team, people of different political parties, to make sure that a voter's intent is accurately recorded. It's then counted by machines that are never, ever connected to the internet, machines that are tested publicly before and after the election for accuracy. Those ballots are audited, they're retained so they can be recounted if they need to. And at every step, we're adding security, we're adding resilience, we're adding redundancy. And no one should take my word for it. If they want to go see it, every county clerk, I've visited every one of them in person in 2025, welcomes people to come and observe the process and to understand all of these elements that add up to what I think is gold standard for elections. So I think everyone who is in Oregon who's had that experience can share that with people they know around the country. And frankly, I think we would be a better country if more people adopted this system, because it makes it work for people who are in busy, complicated lives. In Oregon, you don't have to stand in line to vote. You don't have to take time off work or get a babysitter. This is a fundamental principle of a representative democracy, and we ought to be working to make it more convenient for eligible people to vote.
Such a standard of efficacy, everything has to be accounted, yet you're valuing something. I don't know how to say it politely.
Understand.
How do you combat that word? Anybody can say anything about fraudulent delivery. How do you deal with that?
This is the oath I took. This is the job I signed up for, because I believe in democracy and I believe in the system that we have in Oregon. So I'll talk to anybody about the way we do things. And I hope that this is the kind of conversation we're going to have between now and then. We're trying to fill the gaps so that people are not wondering about how things work. We're pulling back any curtains. We don't have any curtains. You can go to the elections office and watch through the window or in person. We want everyone to understand how this works and how their paper ballot, where they record their choices and their preferences, is taken seriously by every one of our county elections officials. All the people who do that work, they believe in this. And we want people to engage. It's dangerous when people take it for granted. There are too many people in our history who have given up too much, sacrificed too much for us to do anything but take this seriously and give it our all. So I appreciate all of you being here and helping deliver this message, because people are better off when they understand how our system works and they choose to participate. We lead the country, but there's still too many people who are registered who are choosing not to participate. So I'm on a campaign here. I'm not on the ballot, but I'm on a campaign to make sure that everybody who is eligible chooses to participate. That's how we have a better state and a better country. Talking everywhere we can. Not only are we relying on you, but we go to schools, we go to community groups, we show up anywhere that we can talk about this, and we use every tool that we can. We're providing really useful toolkits to people who want to help promote this message and to understand the components that are involved in election administration. We're open to anything. We're creative. We're risk-taking on this front. So anyone who wants to invite us somewhere to talk about elections, I like it anytime people are willing to have that kind of a conversation. Yeah, that's. Yeah, I mean, I recognize the tough position they are in. Their budget and the world of mail and what's in the mail, it looks different now. It's important for people to understand that. It's not as big a deal for those of us in the Portland area, but if you live in a remote part of Oregon, really any place that's more than 50 miles from Portland, even if your ballot is just going across town to the elections office, it's going to come to Portland first for processing and postmarking. And we want people to account for that. So that's why we're really pushing them to use a drop box if it's at all possible, rather than using the mail. And if they do need to use the mail, do it at least a week before Election Day. That's it. Thanks very much.